morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of The Old and the Restless, where we try to address concerns of the residents of Lansdowne Woods and other seniors who may be watching in the internet realm. With me to my right, first of all, is the lovely Phyllis Whetzel, an agent on my team. And as you like to say about the title of our videos,
he's old and I'm restless.
There we go. And we have a special guest this morning because we are going to be introducing a restaurateur to, I can call you a restaurateur, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. To the residents of Lansdowne Woods. Now, all that said, I have had the Riot Act read to me that we cannot speak about you being a potential restaurateur or not at Lansdowne Woods.
Andy.
What?
Move on.
Move on. Okay. So, without further ado, we decided to kind of restrict this to 3 important topics.
Okay.
To get to know Jim and your family, and to talk about what's in the background here, because this is an interesting story. Pelican Isle, is that what it's called?
That is correct.
And you had described to me at one point that it's very successful now.
Yes.
And indeed, you live here in that middle high-rise condo
That's
yourself.
Correct. That's correct.
But even though it's very successful now, you said in the beginning, there were some bumps.
Right.
And that there were some adaptations that had to be made, the restaurant to the community, and the community reciprocally back to you. And
that's correct.
I think that Lansdowne Woods would be fascinated to know in what ways does a community adjust to a restaurant and vice versa.
Well, that's Andy. That's first of all, thank you all for having me today, Phyllis. Nice meeting you today as well. You know, I didn't mention to you also we had 4 hurricanes over the last 6 years. So this year we didn't have a hurricane. So with that, to be able to kind of reinvest in the project, we had to rebuild really almost the whole clubhouse. We built a whole new $18.5 million marina, seawalls. It was Ian back in 2022, not only us, but it wiped out a good portion of that from really Marco Island all the way up to Fort Myers, devastating hurricanes. But with that being said, a great staff of people. I've been there for now 11 years, and I've watched us grow to over 450 members. But when we first got there, there was a lot to be desired about the service, the menu design, the events they were having, and with a lot of hard work and hiring the right people, we have the right team. But it took a lot of effort for us to have a successful club, a club that was struggling to sell memberships at $15,000 to join with a and really just a modest food and beverage allowance each month. It now is $80,000 a year to join, and it's booming. So
wow.
We can go into that in just a few minutes. But
Okay.
I just wanted, so I watched that whole thing transform, and it was done with getting the right people, having the right facility and atmosphere, and really listening to the residents, the people that live here, the 158 units that are in the building. It was very important that we listened to what they had to say, and that was very important.
Now, Jim, this wasn't your first project in restaurant, was it?
No, it was not. I've been in the restaurant industry most of my life. I grew up in the restaurant business. My family owned a large restaurant in Potomac, Maryland called Normandy Farms, and we had that for 32 years. We did a 500-seat restaurant. We did a lot of weddings, wedding receptions, rehearsal dinners. People would get married on the lawns. We did over 3,000 meals on Thanksgiving and Mother's Day. So it was a destination. Been there for over almost 100 years. So it was our family owned it up until 1989. So we were very fortunate to be involved and having that background. But I knew when I was young, working for my family, it was tough business. And the restaurant business has really evolved. But that's kind of where I learned, got my first real background was through my family. It was 7 brothers and sisters working in the restaurant business.
And then your career took a different turn at some point, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I knew working for my dad was not really exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, so I went to Clemson University and was able to play football there and had a lot of success with playing football at Clemson and getting my education there. And I'm heavily involved with Clemson University today on a number of ways. I'm part of a launch pad entrepreneurship program there at the university, and I just got back from participating in a sports symposium reference to changes in new landscape in college football. But with that, hospitality has always been a big part of my life. I've been involved with the restaurants for over 30 years. I've owned over 60 restaurants in my life. My last venture, I built over an 18-year period Velocity Wings, Social House, and Local Tacos and Tequila, all based here in Northern Virginia. And that started in 2007, and I just recently exited from that whole restaurant group called Thompson Hospitality that I worked with for the past 3 years. They were the ones that actually merged with me, and we had a partnership, and they now have the brands and they're running the restaurants. So I'm out with my next venture of restaurants.
Well, Andy and I experienced the Velocity Wings, and they were really very good.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's something I developed back in the 2006 and 7. I wanted to do something special, and we started with something called Velocity 5, which was really more of a traditional sports bar restaurant. And I realized after 5 years of running 5 Velocity 5s, we were in Arlington, we were in Falls Church, we were in Sterling, etc. I realized that the food aspect of it, sometimes when you get labeled as a sports bar, you're going to be busy for your events and your games, which there is a lot of, it's year round. But I wanted families. And in 2013, I took a step back and I ended up branding our restaurants Velocity Wings, which we opened up 10 of those. And my first one was actually in Purcellville. We started in 2013, and it was highly successful. So what we really did was just improve the atmosphere for a family setting, and we changed the menu and made it very affordable. And I always, as I told Andy before, it's very important, in the restaurant business, a couple basic things you've got to remember. You got to remember that when you create a menu and you put a product on the table, it's got to be a fair value, value add for the customer, that they can afford it, but it also has got to be quality. So I always want to make sure we have a quality menu with quality product. Next thing is customer service. Your intellectual property on any restaurant is your staff and your people, and we invest quite a bit of money in them for training. Training is very important. So customer service is really the nucleus of your operation, to make sure that people have that customer experience when they come in. I mean, when I build a restaurant, I sit in different seats and I look at the experience. I watch what happens in the restaurant as I am a customer. So customer service is critical to any operation in the hospitality business. And the next thing is cleanliness. I know when people see me come in, the first stop, I always hit the kitchen, then I hit the bathrooms. I want to make sure that the restaurants are clean, because customers recognize that. And so I've always been very involved in making sure the restaurants, and part of that being clean is the atmosphere. You want to walk in, temperature's got to be right, the energy in the restaurant's got to be right, the lighting's got to be right. No one likes to sit in a spot under a spotlight. So these are things that I've always kept it simple, because there's a lot of very small pieces of the puzzle that you have to execute on. But the restaurant business, we can make it as complicated as we want. But if you can offer the customer a great experience, they're going to come back.
And what types of things do you do to create that energy and that excitement?
Again, it starts with our staff. And the staff having that, it's an attitude, making sure that people want to work for us, want to be there. I've always learned that the staff I've dealt with over 400 people working for me in my operations, is that you got to make it challenging. You got to make it fun. Of course, everybody's there to make money, but they got to come prepared. So I always tell people, come prepared to work. Make sure you have the right uniform on. You're ready to go for the day. You have a good attitude, and I always told them, I used to carry cue cards, but just what are your goals today? So our managers are always, stressing on our training side, is that they come in, they got to have goals. I'm very transparent. I want them to know how many guests we expect today, how they need to be treated, and what our revenues should be at the end of the day, what it should be at the end of the week. And that way, it should translate to more money in their pocket as well. We always know that money's a motivator, but it goes that the energy and really the atmosphere starts with my staff. 10, 12 people on the floor at one time. whether it's a bartender, hostess, I mean, very important. If someone comes to your house and walks in the front door, you're going to greet them. It really bothers me if I walk into a restaurant and a hostess or a manager doesn't even acknowledge me as a customer. That's the first basic thing you got to do in the restaurant. Person walks in your building, you've got to forget the phone, concentrate on that customer walking in the door.
Well, Jim, one of the things that I love is dancing. So do you have a restaurant where you have, for instance, music bingo and dancing? And
I take a lot of pride in over the years with our marketing and our events that we've had. And one thing we've always had music in all of our restaurants. Our restaurant in Sterling, over the years, we've had many as a 9-piece band at one time. So we had a band called One More that would come in. We do a big summer jam, and these are basically adults. That are really our target market's really 40 and up, 40 and 75. I mean, we have
still young.
Still young. We have people enjoying themselves, but
old and restless.
Old and restless, yeah.
And I'm very restless.
And
dancing.
and if all of the restaurants I had in the area, we always had our local people that became part of the fabric. They all felt like stakeholders. But entertainment, we would have music usually three times a week. A Thursday night we'd have acoustics. Friday and Saturdays we always had music. But we do trivia. We would do, there's so many things we would do. We'd hold cornhole tournaments outside in the summer. So there's a lot of little mini events that we would do to have fun with it.
Barbecue?
Different times of the year, absolutely. We do summer, we'd bring the grill outside. We did a lot of charitable functions over the years. And I say that over 18 years of my experience. And again, I'm from the Washington area. I grew up in Potomac, Maryland. Have lived in, always kept a residence in Virginia since 1982, even though my football days I was in coaching. But when I got back to the area, I've always stayed in Great Falls and have lived here and in Northern Virginia. So really all my restaurants have been in Northern Virginia.
Now, go ahead.
No, I did.
I was going to say, you touched on one little comment about your football years. Tell the audience what your football years were like.
Well, I had a short stay in the Canadian Football League as a player after I finished at Clemson University, and then I went into the National Football League. I was actually hired as a young coach with the Redskins with Joe Gibbs back in the early 80s.
You hear that, kids? Redskins. I know you're a fan.
Now the Commanders, I don't want to talk about this year's. Last year at this time, we were enjoying a pretty good ride, but this year they're having some difficulties. But I believe in the new ownership group's going to do well. But I was very fortunate to be with the Washington Redskins back in the mid '80s when we were very successful. 3 Super Bowls. Learned a lot with the Redskins working. Back in those days, we only had 11 coaches.
I remember those days.
Yeah, today they have 23. So. I did a lot of things I did as a coach with the Redskins, and it was a great part of my life. And what I learned with people like Coach Gibbs and Dan Henning and Joe Bugle and Richie Pettibone, it just those lasted with me. The work ethics and the work habits. I mean, coaching is a lot like the restaurant business. You don't watch the clock. Your hours are 18 hours a day type industries. And but you know what? You got to enjoy what you're doing. And I've always loved what I've done. So football was a great part of my life, but it also helped really kind of really get me to the next level where I wanted to go in business. There was a lot of correlation between coaching and really running any operation, because coaching is teaching and training, and training's a big part of why I feel I've been successful over the years in the restaurant business.
Well, so Coach Gibbs is now a NASCAR owner. Are you going to drive a NASCAR?
No, I'm not. That was his love. I heard about NASCAR in the early on before he ever owned a team. But he grew up in Concord, North Carolina, and that's part of the fabric of his lifestyle.
Yes.
So, but for me, I was in Charlotte, and so I was always. I was a good listener, and I learned a lot. Then from there, I went to the Buffalo Bills and coached with some great coaches there as well. And then actually, because of my coaching background, I was able to get into the front office, and I became an owner of a Canadian Football League team. And I owned 2. I owned the Baltimore Stallions for 3 years. We had the Canadian Football League in Baltimore. We were highly successful. Actually, tomorrow is our 30th year anniversary. We're the only team ever to win a Grey Cup, American team to win a Grey Cup. in a 135-year-old league. The Canadian Football League's older than the NFL. And, the team that I started called the Baltimore Stallions, we moved them to Montreal back in 1996 when the Cleveland Browns moved to Baltimore. And that's a long story, but very well history has got a lot of good information about that. But I was able to move the team and had to do it again up in Montreal, Canada, where I own the Montreal Alouettes. So I own two teams in Canadian Football League. But one thing about what helped me to be successful in operating a professional football team was concessions. And we had two companies. One was Airmark and one was Finehost, but they were large concession companies. And I negotiated with them. So, when you get 40,000 people in the stands, this is huge. It's $500,000 in one day of business with your beverage, your food, your operations, so and events, our halftime events. So what I really found myself owning a professional football team for several years was that I was in the event business, entertainment business. Football's entertainment, but also you got to think about that customer, that fan coming through the turnstile. What type of game day experience do they have? How was their tailgating experience? How was their experience when they came to the venue? Was the pricing something they could afford? Was the stadium clean? These are things that as I went into my next level of life with the restaurants, a lot of similarities being in the hospitality business. So when I say most of my life, even when I was in football, I was in the hospitality business.
Yeah, I can see that.
One of the things that I was wondering, that with all of the success you've had in sports and also in the restaurant business, let's talk about vision. Are you able to take a look at certain restaurant concepts or scenarios and say, this is going to be a hit or this will never work? Are there certain commonalities where you can say, this is something that's going to be good to be involved in?
Yeah, I think there's some early signs that always will tell you whether or not a restaurant's going to be successful. I really kind of feel like, first of all, you got to have a concept. A lot of people think the restaurant business is glamorous and they want to. Everybody wants to own a restaurant, but I mean, if you're in the barbecue business and Mission Barbecue is already there in that same complex, I don't think you want to go in the barbecue business. So my point is that you really, I've always looked at restaurant opportunities if there's a need. What is there a need that customers want? And so I spent a lot of time with the demographics. I spent a lot of time with the real estate aspect of it to understand where are you located in the center? Do you have parking? There's a lot of issues before you ever open your doors. Again, about do you really truly have a concept? Is there a need? Is the facility set up for success? Because a lot of times some restaurants are too big, some are too small. Are they laid out properly? Can you really do the type of customer counts and revenues that you want as an operator? So there's a lot of early on things that you got a checklist that you've got to do. But where it gets to it is that you find this great spot and you're ready to go, and then you got to hire staff, and do you have experienced people working there, and do you have good vendors? I mean, I've been a long time U.S. foods vendor. You got to have a relationship with your vendors to get the type of products you want. So to be a restaurant operator today, there's a lot of resources out there to help you. But again, you've also got to have the proper financing. A lot of times people go into a restaurant and it's like you're getting that big plane off the runway. It takes a good year and a half before you really establish your roots in any community and to be known. Everybody wants to go to a new restaurant. And a lot of times I go there, well, we waited 45 minutes, then we waited another 45 minutes. You've got to be prepared. I learned early on that when you have grand openings and soft openings, you really got to make sure that you don't upset your customers the minute you open your doors. Yeah. So, but usually I can tell from my experience on whether or not things are going to work out well or not. But again, there's sometimes people turn things around. So I feel that I do feel I'm an expert in the restaurant industry. I've been doing it all my life, but I just know there's some warning signs that early on, well, why would maybe not take a location?
Yeah, so I think that our audience would be interested in the experience at Pelican Island, because, I mean, we don't expect in Lansdowne Woods to have to rebuild after a hurricane. Right. We would hope. Right. But you've had other adaptations there. I think you said that the community needed to make changes for you and that you also for them. Can you describe some of the ways in which a community might have to interact with a restaurant, each making changes with the other to have a successful venue over time?
Well, Andy, it kind of, I went down to Naples about 11 years ago to have a place for my family. My brother lives down there. My sister lives in Sarasota. I have another sister who's in the hospitality business over at Boca Raton. So for family, it was always a place I wanted to go south to spend a couple, months a year down there. And we're trying, still don't do it today, trying to get there eventually. But I was fortunate enough to get a place at Pelican Isle, and after 5 years, they wanted me to get on the board. You get to know people there, and hey, Jim, do you have time? And I don't. Time is something that's very precious to me, and I try at this stage of my life. I'm trying to spend a little more time with I have grandchildren here that live in Northern Virginia, and probably a good reason I'm going to be up here for another 10 years. So my grandchildren live over in Lowe's Island, and so when I got there, I noticed there was some, I guess the process is I was watching through having a club's different than a normal restaurant, and it's seasonal, and staffing gets to be difficult, and I kind of watched in the beginning things were just inconsistent, and you have people that pay a lot of money to be part of a club, and they asked me if I would join the board. So I joined the board of the Pelican Isle Condominium Association so I could give my input, and because of my restaurant experience I kind of dove in, and over the course there, we were able to bring in a significant leader, a general manager, that could come in and recognize that you have your residents that live there. That, I mean, you could never leave the island if you didn't want to. You've got all the facilities there. But you also have people that live outside the gates of Pelican Isle that also members. So now, when I first joined, there was maybe 200 members. It was hard for people to join because, quite honestly, the food wasn't great. The service wasn't great. You show up sometimes, there's only 2 people working and you have a dining room with 60 people. Sometimes you walk in there and there's 6 people in the dining room and there's 12 people working. Very difficult to get the right balance. Yeah. And so what I was able to do is get on a team, and we interviewed the residents and the current members. And I'm proud to say it was part of a process that went from 200 members to now we're sold out. There's a waiting list of 60, 70 people to join. 7 times X what it cost to join 11 years ago. So the amount to join the club now, and it just shows you when you get the right team together. And what we did, we laid out a map from January 1st to December 31st. We probably have about 40 events a year that go on there at the club. We change the menu 6 or 7 times a year, seasonal. Have tremendous events there at the club. And all I know is if you build it, they will come. We listened to what the residents wanted, whether it was the women's club or the men's club or just a midsummer party where we'd have mermaids in the pool swimming, and so, but lots of entertainment, always music, and so what we did was we listened to what the residents wanted, and what we were able to do was find the right people to deliver that, and the price points very affordable. So in other words, you want your cake and eat it too. As a resident, you want to be able to get a good meal, but you don't want to spend $70 for it. I mean, if you can find get a good piece of grouper for $38, a full meal, that's great. So we kept it affordable, and we upped the ante on the customer service and the people that work there, and we have a wonderful team of people. But it wasn't like that 6 or 7 years ago, and it's now a fabulous club. But it took a lot of hard work, and it started with the people that lived on the island, and gave our feedback. And once that feedback was taken in, we were able to put the right team together.
And I think you mentioned off camera that the quality of the food in this club in Florida rivals, if not is superior to, a local country club food.
Yes, I think right now, and I've been able to enjoy several clubs here in the area, and it certainly does. It's one thing you have in Florida, you get fresh fish, and if you like seafood, you're getting it year round.
Although we can get it from here, right, from the bay.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so, but it's just nice that it's a great, and the great menu is that the design of the menu. In October you have Oktoberfest, and they'll do a big party, and you'll have your beer and your sausages and your Oktoberfest. Your German food will come in, and which is great. But and we'll do Thanksgiving. We do Easter Sundays. We do Mardi Gras. There's just all kinds of events, so they make it fun. So I think it's part of the community. Like I said, I mean, Lansdowne Woods has close to 2,000 people living there. Here we're a small piece that we're we're like 500, 600 people live in there. So it's
Really?
Yeah, so
That's small.
Yeah, it's that small. So,
Wow.
but the membership outside the gates within a mile or two, there's lots of condos and homes there.
Okay.
So we have over 450 members there at the club.
So you had to go outside the gates.
Yeah, outside people to join the club, and that's really and that helped. Once we got the reputation, everybody wanted to join the club. So it's a beautiful, because it's a yacht club as well. And then there's reciprocals. There's a lot of benefits to when you to play golf and all that kind of stuff.
And Jim, you've had the challenge of juggling the restaurant business with family too, and I admire that because I have children of my own and grandchildren, and sometimes that's not easy to do.
No, my wife and I have been married for 41 years, and she's been with me for the whole process. So whether it was football, whether it was hospitality, real estate, whatever I was involved in, she was always there to help me and work with me. So she's been my partner in all these ventures. And I have 2 sons and a daughter, and both my sons are in football now, but my one son was a general manager for me for 8 years in one of my restaurants, and just recently, about 4 years ago, decided he wanted to go back to coaching. So he coaches at Catholic University. He's a tight ends coach there for Catholic University. He grew up here locally and went to Flint Hill over in Oakton, and then he played football for 5 years at the University of Richmond. His name is Jimmy. Then my son Justin, who I'm also very proud of, he's the assistant general manager and joint chiefs of staff at University of Virginia. He went to Clemson University, ended up having a coaching career down there for 6 seasons, went to University of South Florida with one of the coaches, and 4 years ago, Tony Elliott, who was a Clemson coach, brought him up to UVA. He's been there for 4 years now, and UVA is having a very successful season this year. They've earned it. And Tony Elliott, but it all started at Clemson for him. That's my son Justin. Then my daughter, Alexa, who's in fashion design. She worked with me in the restaurant business for a number of years as well. She helped me open local tacos and tequila. But she's really, her love is fashion design, and that's what she does now here. And she lives in Reston, Virginia here, so she's local. And I'm very fortunate. And I got to mention my Jimmy and his wife Farah. They have 2 little kids. I have a granddaughter that's 5, Sophia, and I have a little wrestling partner of mine. His name is Leo. He's 3. So they are very active, and they live over in Lowe's Island. So we're very fortunate, very blessed.
So we are getting the sign from our esteemed videographer that we are towards the end of our 30-minute show.
Okay.
And we wanted to thank you for your appearance.
Yes.
I know that the people of Lansdowne Woods who are watching are eager to get to know you more and in a more professional capacity. Thank you all for watching, and you'll be able to see this on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, it's very important for those of you in video land to be able to click the like button and also subscribe so you're notified of future videos. And by clicking the like button, you help the algorithm so that others can enjoy this as much as you have. Jim, thanks very much.
Thank
Phyllis,
you.
thank
Great,
you.
Thank
great.
you so
And
much.
thank you also to NVAR for hosting this show yet one more time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.